Too soon to begin working toward this end. Each time I wanted a perfect swim, a lane to myself, the right water temperature. During the pandemic, I moved to the shore and began swimming in the Atlantic Ocean year-round. Now, I never know quite what I will get every morning. Each swim is exciting and daunting, but I'm thriving in body and mind more than ever before. My daily dose of uncertainty strengthens me. Let's stop assuming that the world is bird-free, uncertainty-free, and discover all that not knowing offers. Uncertainty may save humanity. Great strides have been made in AI by designing models and robots that can single-mindedly pursue a goal, learning as they go. But giving increasingly powerful systems a mission and letting them take care of the rest is risky. Their unstoppability may be our demise. That's why some of AI's top leaders are working to reimagine the field with uncertainty in mind. They're building AI that can be unsure of its aims and so be more honest, teachable, inclusive, and safe. For example, an unsure cop robot will admit that there's a 30% probability that the man on the street is not the suspect, rather than simply giving the go-ahead on an arrest. At Virginia Tech, I met one of the world's first I don't know robots and saw firsthand their potential to change our contested relations with technology. And perhaps most intriguingly, scientists working to imbue AI with uncertainty told me that making humble, honest systems was helping them to cultivate these qualities within themselves. One day, unsure AI may hold up a mirror to our better selves and so inspire us to admit to and harness our uncertainty. Or even sooner, we could begin to role model this essential human quality for each other. When you're unsure, you can see the possibility, not just the set in stone wrong of someone who differs from you. When you can question the idea that knowing should be instant and pat, you can recognize how rarely does one tempo, one viewpoint, or one template suffice. We're still a long way from fully realizing the unsung potential of being unsure. But I suspect that a seismic shift in humanity's approach to not knowing is at hand. It's not outrageous, and increasingly, it may be necessary to ponder a future in which our uncertainty can save humanity. And it's none too soon to begin working toward this end.
Thank you, Maggie. I know the list of things I'm uncertain about is long, and I can embrace that. But one thing I am certain about is that I'll be back next week with a fresh batch of big ideas for you listeners. Come on back Monday and join me on our never-ending journey of learning and growing. This week's episodes were written and produced by me, Michael Kovnat, and edited by Caleb Bissinger. The Next Big Idea Daily is a proud part of the LinkedIn Podcast Network. See you next week.
unethical in every particular way. And it's just like, why is this in every movie? I feel like now that I've pointed it out, people will know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I love and hate Gale Weathers, but I will also say Courtney Cox apparently designed her hair pieces across each of these movies, and like, thank goodness, because I was like, I hope no costume designer made her wear any of the absurd wigs that this woman is wearing. Like, Scream Free, she has these baby bangs that are just like deeply upsetting, and I was like, did they make Courtney cut her hair that way? No, it is a hair piece. So I was really fascinated by that, and just like Courtney Cox being like, no, I'm gonna like design specific terrible hair for this character to have, and that really like endeared me to her as like a performer, and also kind of made me understand the character more as like just this, you love to hate her. It's Gale Weathers. So yeah, we're continuing the Screamiverse and really digging it.
Is 3 the one where they're making the movie and they're like on
Yes.
movie sets and stuff?
Yes, and it's very
Is that
fun.
the one where there's like a killer in the soundproof room
Yes.
and like the person
That's
can't
right.
hear that rules? I love that killer.
Yeah,
That's a good
it's
one.
great. And they're like beating on the glass. There's also the one where there's that long rack of the Ghostface costumes, and like somebody's hiding
Right.
behind the huge rack
Right,
of
right,
costumes,
right,
and of
right.
course like one of them is the real Ghostface, and his like
Uh-huh.
foot steps down from the rack. It's like perfectly framed. It's a
Yeah.
great shot. There's just a lot of moments like that where you're like, this is great. Movies.
Have fun.
You gotta love
They have
movies.
fun with those movies. Nice.
All right, my one more thing is a video game called Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. This is
As promised.
Yeah.
As promised.
Yeah.
as promised last week.
Finally.
Not to be confused with
Here we are.
Dragon Age The Veilguard. What do you think is a worse name? Dragon Age The Veilguard or Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake?
I don't know. They're both pretty.
Those are both the full titles.
It's hard to say.
Genuinely are.
So this is Dragon Quest III came out in 1988, and it's gotten a few kind of remakes and remasters since then, but this is the most elaborate. So this takes HD 2D in the title. That refers to this graphical style that Square Enix really kind of innovated with Octopath Traveler, where you have kind of the pixelated 2D characters. They might not necessarily be 2D, but they have a 2D look, and they're standing on these three-dimensional backgrounds, which gives them this really interesting aesthetic effect, and it's gotten prettier and prettier over the years. Octopath Traveler 2 especially is gorgeous with it.
Man,
And this takes
what a
things
great
even
looking
further.
game.
Yeah, this game also looks incredible. And so it takes the original game, and most of the gameplay and mechanics and world design is still intact. There are some changes, a lot of quality of life changes, like in the original NES game, you had pretty limited items, and now you do not, and stuff like that. But fundamentally, have either of you guys played the Dragon Quest game before? Yeah, they're very
The answer
much
you'd
like the quintessential turn-based JRPG games. They're a lot about resource management. Some of them have pretty elaborate stories. This one doesn't really have a story. The characters are just kind of choose your own adventure, like create your own characters. They don't talk or have personalities or anything. But it has a really interesting kind of resource management element to it, where you really have to plot things out and figure out when you're going to use a character's spells to get through a dungeon, because resources are pretty limited as you get through each dungeon. It also has a pretty cool chop system, and it has a lot going for it if you're into kind of turn-based systems, heavy JRPGs, which Maddie, this game would drive you crazy, because it's like
I
it's
don't
full
need
of
to play it.
invisible random encounters everywhere. It's got it's got its own kind of rhythm. Although, Kirk, I mean, the more recent ones, Dragon Quest XI had encounters on the map rather than invisible.
No, I-
That's
So
at least
a
more
little bit
bearable to me, I would
this
say.
one is much more old school. But the one thing that I will say that I wanted to talk about specifically is that when the game starts out pretty linear, and you kind of do a bunch of quests, and then at a certain point you get a ship. And then you are set into the open world, and you can take your ship in any direction, go wherever you want. And it was revolutionary at the time, and still feels a little bit revolutionary, because the game doesn't give you guidance. And so in this remake, they add quest markers, objective markers, and I would actually recommend turning them off, because it's really fun at this point in the game. If you're into this game, again, you have to look past the invisible random encounters. But if you're into the game, it's actually really fun to go around and sail around and find all these towns on your map and go into them and talk to all the NPCs there. And sometimes they'll give you hints, some of which are very straightforward, some of which are obscure, about what you should be doing and how you can go around and complete your objective, which is to get all these orbs that are hidden in various places. And it's actually really cool. And you kind of you have to keep a mental checklist of where you're supposed to be and what items you need to get. And it's got a little Metroidvania to it, and that you have to get specific types of keys that unlock certain doors, and you can only make progression once you've gotten that key here or this item that unlocks this thing. It's pretty cool. It's a cool system, and it's a lot more fun with, as I mentioned before, the objective markers turned off, because you actually have to listen to what the NPCs are telling you and follow their the directions, or listen to the clues they're giving you, and that part is really cool. And I think was revolutionary in 1988. I mean, no game had done anything like this. And this was the game. I think the first two Dragon Quest games were popular in Japan, but this one really turned it into a cultural phenomenon. This is the game where hundreds of people were reportedly arrested in Japan for skipping school to go and play it, to the point where in Japan they had to issue, Square Enix had to make a special arrangement or Enix at the time had to make a special arrangement to release games on Saturdays rather than Thursdays in the Dragon Quest series, because Dragon Quest would just shut down all of Japan when it would come out. Dragon Quest's popularity in Japan is crazy. It's unheard of. It's like Call of Duty here or something like that. Probably even worse. But anyway, this game is really cool. It's a really well done remake. It's not going to convert any JRPG naysayers or people who don't like the encounter rate. It's pretty tough. It's one of those games you pretty much have to play it while you're watching TV or something like that. Which is too bad, because the music is cool. But those sitting through those invisible encounters can be rough unless you're really feeling the rhythm of it.
Are there any console commands or fast forward or anything?
No,
like that?
so this is the thing.
No, that's too bad.
You can set battle speed to ultra fast, which makes it pretty speedy, but you can't. So in a bunch of other Square Enix JRPGs, I forget which ones have this exact mechanic, but in a bunch of them, you can turn off random encounters. A bunch of the kind of old school JRPG style, and especially the newer versions of some of the Final Fantasy games, you can turn off random encounters with these built-in cheat codes and stuff like that. And that is always a big advantage of those games, and not being able to turn them off in this is a little bit unfortunate. Although it would kind of defeat the purpose of the game if you could turn off random encounters, because it's not like a story game. It's a game that is very much about battling and building up a group of characters and finding class permutations. Sure. You can actually, there's this interesting job system where each character has a job, and then once they hit level 20, you can take them to this place and have them switch jobs. But they don't stay at level 20. They actually go all the way back to level 1. But they keep all the spells they've learned, and their stats are cut in half rather than starting from the beginning. So you can min-max the system to build really, really powerful characters by switching job classes, keeping their old spells, and then you build up a mage to level 20, and then you turn him into a warrior, and suddenly you have this built-up tank who can cast spells. So there's some cool systems in place, but it's very much a game for people who are into systems rather than into stories. So very much for a specific type of person, but if you're into Dragon Quest, this is a great remake, and just as a remake, it performs well, it looks great, it's got all the trappings that you would want from it. Nice. All right, that is it for this week's episode. Hope everybody enjoyed our advice. Well, once again, we are not lawyers, so do not
lawyers. We're not therapists. We don't know anything at all.
We don't know anything.
We don't know anything.
So don't listen to
You can
us.
enjoy the advice of 3 idiots who play video games. Hopefully our advice is...
3 idiots who play video games. That's
We tried.
The new name for our podcast.
That's going to be the new podcast summary.
I'm sure about 3 idiots who play video games.
Yep.
All right, Kirk, Maddie, see you both next week.
Yeah, see you both next week.
Bye.
Triple Click is produced by Jason Schreier, Maddie Byers, and me, Kirk Hamilton. I edit and mix the show and also wrote our theme music. Our show art is by Tom DJ. Some of the games and products we talked about on this episode may have been sent to us for free for review consideration. You can find a link to our ethics policy in the show notes. Triple Click is a proud member of the Maximum Fun Podcast Network, and if you like our show, we hope you'll consider supporting us by becoming a member at MaximumFun.org/join. Find us on Twitter at TripleClickPod, send email to tripleclick@MaximumFun.org, and find a link to our Discord in the show notes. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Maximum Fun, a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows,
Supported directly by you. Pues tuve que pagar una multa de como de 25,000 pesos. ¿Por qué? Pues nada más estaba estacionado ahí normal, o sea, como pero adentro de la sala de una casa. No, un estacionamiento normal, así. De hecho pensé que era porque me dejaron una cartita y dije, van a hacer de esos de que froté mis bolas en tu puerta, ¿no? Y no, o sea, vi y era un QR para pagar la multa. No, ese es un scam. De hecho, eso es phishing. Te ponen un QR, de hecho no escaneas nunca un QR que no sabes qué es. Lo escaneas y te sacan todos tus datos del celular y luego te pueden poner multas. Es phishing. Esto es algo natural en el mundo del internet cibernético.
Es como la evolución nueva del phishing, porque antes más eran correos o mensajes de texto con links de,
pícale este link. Ahora son QR, es el nuevo link que no le debes de picar.
Sí, mira, si hubieras instalado un VPN en tu celular, te hubiera dicho, esto es phishing, no le des 25,000 pesos a esta persona porque supuestamente estás haciendo mal.
Ni tus datos, ni todos tus datos.
NordVPN.com/legendaria, te sigue la promo, tú puedes tener tu descuento, 30 días de garantía y puedes evitar que te bajen 25,000 varos porque creíste que esto. Sí, pues llegó una grúa y todo.
Okay.
NordVPN.com/legendaria te protege contra el phishing, no contra los malware tracking.
Leyendas legendarias presenta historia del masacre. So, ves que el AI batalla para, por ejemplo, hacer manos, duplicar la misma cosa secuencial,
le van a pasar al día.
Pues ese tipo de cositas como trata de hacer imágenes, que es como detectas imágenes falsas hechas por AI. Entonces, estaba pensando en eso, se detectaba. Entonces, branched out y todo. Pero eso hizo pensar que hay face y los doppelgangers que imitan a la gente y son idénticos a la gente, pero la forma de saber que no son es porque algo está mal.
Sí, claro.
Le sobra un dedo o algo está choco, no pueden, o sea, comparten lo mismo. Si el AI es este algoritmo que trata de hacer una imagen con lo que sabe o asume que es una imagen, pero no le sale, y los doppelgangers la conciencia, o sea que es una conciencia que trata de armarse, ella armaría su imagen, o que es nuestro cerebro y su algoritmo tratando de armar lo que estamos viendo y le sale porque hay. Pero hay forma.
Es una coincidencia.
Hace poquito estaba viendo el caso de... invito a
Qué bueno, porque es muy temprano para estar escuchando esas cosas. Ya después de comer el chido, pero en la mañana
prefiero aventarme una inyección de heroína.
Pero en la mañana.
José Antonio.
Ahora entiendo por qué Gaby empezó a despertarse más tarde después de que empezó a vivir conmigo.
Tiro cowboy, güey, así, directo en la estufa, con soy lata.
¿Lo platicaste con Gemini?
No, apenas, esta me pasó esta mañana, tengo que platicarlo. Hace poquito estaba watchando un caso de un doppelganger, que son los güeyes que se parecen un chingo, ¿no? Sí, de un, doctor de cirugía estética, ¿no? Operó un güey, creo que de la nariz o algo del rostro, güey, y luego llega un vato igual a él y le pregunta, güey, no te puedo operar, te acabo de operar, más operado, güey. No mames, güey, fue conocer un güey igualito que tú, los presentó, los vatos, los dos practicaban béisbol, güey. Su tono de voz era casi idéntico, pero su prueba de ADN no coincidía, güey. O sea, no eran hermanos. No, nada, güey, pero están un pelirrojillo. Ajá, sí, güey. Los dos eran beisbolistas. Sí, te casaron con el esposo con el mismo no. Sí, un chingo de coincidencias, güey. Ajá. Pero sí fue un caso.
A veces eso sí me hace creer que vivimos en una simulación.
Yo, pinche coincidencia.
Y así es como se definen los sesgos.
Yes, branched out, frijoles. Welcome, bienvenidos everybody a tu lugar favorito, más bonito y predilecto para escuchar todo lo que está pasando desde este lado del ciberespacio y del otro borre. Take it away.
Notas macabrosas.
Pues bueno, empecemos notas macabrosas, güey. Esta que mandó Octavio Méndez sobre
Una festividad que existe en Tailandia, yo no sabía de esta tradición, güey, se llama el banquete de los monos, no sé si ustedes han escuchado hablar de eso. Pues el 24 de noviembre hacen como un banquete para decenas de monos y hay todo un festino, comida tradicional, en el templo de Phra Prang Samyot, ¿no? En la provincia tailandesa de Lopburi. Pues el banquete es organizado desde 1989, se hizo una tradición, la empezó un empresario que se llama Lopburi Yongyut Kitawatanan-Nunson. Ese compa. Kitawatanan-Nunson.
El Priki.
Sí, el Lopburi. El Yongyu. Y se celebra el último domingo de noviembre para honrar a los macacos de cola larga por atraer un chingo de turismo a la ciudad, como un agradecimiento a los monos. Y también
Es súper antiguo, es una tradición nueva.
No,
Es del
del 89, güey. Tiene
Menos que
35 años.
nosotros,
Sí. Sí. Y pues promueve también mucho el turismo, ¿no? Este banquete, güey, es un caos, güey, porque los encierran, bueno, no se encierran, es como una jaulita gigante, pero con las puertas abiertas, les ponen un chingo de comida. Y es un cagaderote, güey, porque son de estos güeyes que son acá temperamentales y se ve que es un cagadero.
Bacanal.
Sí, pero pues ahí está esta bonita festividad que se celebra en noviembre, ¿no? 24 de noviembre. No se les olvide el banquete de los monos. Como un día de acción de gracias, pero a los monos. Ajá, comida algo. Ajá, sí, bueno. Bueno, pues la siguiente nota la mandó Tadeo Mi, o MI, o ML, no estoy seguro. Pero resulta que hace poquito la Policía Nacional de Perú, pues, les pasó algo, se podría decir paranormal, no tan paranormal, sino que no hicieron lo adecuado, la verdad, ¿no? Porque resulta que pensaron que una persona que estaba sufriendo ataques de epilepsia, en realidad estaba sufriendo un exorcismo. Entonces, lo que ellos hicieron fue sujetarla, así de las extremidades, le agarraron la cabeza, uno sacó una cruz de su origen, se lo puso en la frente, y entre todos empezaron a rezar el Padre Nuestro, ¿no? Entonces, resulta que llegan los equipos de emergencia, el servicio de atención móvil de urgencia.
Era John Constantine.
Pues yo creo, ¿no, güey? Y pues tardaron un poquito en llegar, ¿no? Esta ambulancia, ya cuando al fin llega, pues se llevan a esta persona al hospital 2 de mayo, ¿no? Cuando llega al hospital 2 de mayo, le dicen que pues la chava estaba sufriendo ataques de epilepsia, güey. No traía al diablo. No traía al diablo, nada encima, nada más. Tenía un ataque de epilepsia, güey, pero estos güeyes, pues por su religión, pensaron que era un exorcismo, ¿no? Ahora, güey, yo sé que mucha gente piensa que cuando alguien sufre convulsiones, tienes que pedir una hebilla, ¿no? No. Como el Pato Zambrano, ¿no? Todos piensan eso, güey, pero eso es lo que no se debe de hacer, güey. Porque hay mucha gente que mientras sufre la boca, sí, pero hay mucha gente que mientras sufre epilepsia a veces le provocan vómitos y eso puede hacer asfixia.
¿Quieres cortar las abejas?
Tienes que ponerlo de lado y la barbilla hacia el pecho.
Pues lo pones de lado, barbilla el pecho y luego esa de María en lugar de
Digo, hay que hacer las cosas así.
Sí, güey. Pero sí, o sea, debes de acostarlo en el piso, güey, sobre todo en un espacio plano donde haya mucho espacio, de lado, ahí sí lo sujetas, güey, que no se vaya a lastimar, y tu cabeza se la pones en el pecho para que no se vomite, ¿no?
Ustedes van a porque